Good morning, you guys. We're diving into Genesis chapter 26, and I am so excited. We're going to see a replay. I always relate this to like TV shows when before you could just go through them. We had reruns, and we're going to have a rerun today that you're going to be like, wait, I've already seen that one twice, but we're going to see it play out again. So I'm ready to dive in. My name is Shay, and I show women how to read the Bible for themselves, but not by themselves. If you've ever struggled with reading the Bible, or maybe you've tried reading through the Bible in a year and you quit after January, hello, I'm guilty of that. Or you're like, hey, I'm not really ready to like do all the Greek and sit a whole year in one book. We're right here in the middle. That's what we're doing in Rooted. We're going to read through the Bible one chapter at a time. And we're starting in Genesis. We're going to read it in chronological order. And we're like right in the middle of, we're not going to read 5 or 6 chapters a day to get through it. Nothing wrong with that. I've done that and I love it. But we're also not going to just sit in the verses of the Greek and Hebrew and all of that. We're going to read it where we can remember it and retain it and connect everything together as we're learning how to read the Bible. Repeated themes, repeated words, how to use cross references. Where have I seen that before? What do I do with that? And we're doing it live. So I'm glad you're here. If this is the first time you're watching this, then I'll put a link down below. You can go start at the very beginning. This is in Genesis. We're doing 3 chapters a week, every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday morning at 5 a.m. And we'll be right here going through them. We are in chapter 26 today. So we are officially halfway through Genesis. There are 50 chapters. It's a long book and we're halfway through. So if you're doing this live with me, I'm so excited. Pat yourself on the back. Go get some ice cream or something. You've made it halfway. For those of you that have purchased the journal, I'm going through the questions. You do not have to have my companion guide to go along with it. But if you're wanting to kind of learn how to do this on your own instead of just listening to more Christian content and consuming that, you can get this and it's going to help you kind of learn to catch things yourself before you come here. But with that being said, let's dive in. We have a little bit longer chapter. I had said this last time, but at the beginning of Genesis, I was reading the whole entire chapter and then I would go back. But the chapters are getting a little bit longer and we kind of have some more points to match. So I'm going to kind of switch that up and we're going to do that again today. So I am going to be reading, I'll probably read just verses 1 through 6 at first and then we'll break it down. I am reading from the CSB. The words will be on the screen for you. You can follow along. If you're driving or listening, that'd be great too. So let's go ahead and dive into chapter 26. There was another famine in the land in addition to the one that had occurred in Abraham's time. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of Philistines at Gerar. The Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land that I tell you about. Stay in the land as an alien, and I will be with you and bless you. For I will give you all the land to you and your offspring, and I will confirm the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky. I will give your offspring to all these lands of the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring, because Abraham listened to me and kept my mandate, my commands, my statutes, and my instructions." So Isaac settled in Gerar. Okay, so there was another famine. Okay, so just kind of as a review, so we've had over the last few chapters, at this point, Abraham has died. And so Abraham and Sarah had Isaac. Isaac, last time we read, the twins are born. Jacob and Esau are born. And so this is, after that has happened, now we're seeing this replay. So it's just Isaac and Rebekah, Abraham and Sarah. They have, they're gone. But we hear some language that lets us know like this is being repeated. So it says there was another famine in the land in addition to the one that had occurred in Abraham's time. Okay, so this is another famine, probably something that we in 2026, especially over here in the West, don't think a lot about. I mean, we live where there's a bunch of farmers and stuff. And so we're like, oh my goodness, we need rain. Like we need the rain for the crops and the animals and everything. But back then, like they relied on it. And so famines would have been more common, but it says another one happened. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines at Gerar. The Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt." Okay, so we know the other time Abraham went down to Egypt. And here the Lord is interceding to Isaac and he's telling him, do not go down to Egypt. Also, we're going to see some names repeated in this chapter that we also saw in the time of Abraham. And so Abimelech is one of them. And depending on the commentary that you read, honestly, which this isn't like anything like gospel worthy that hinges on it. Some commentators think that this is the same Abimelech. Others don't. They think it could be like a relative, like Abimelech may have been the name given to the leader or the king. And so that this would have been a relative, but not the exact one. Again, it doesn't really matter, but I do think that it's interesting that the same thing is happening. So the Lord tells him, do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land I tell you about. Stay in this land as an alien, and I will be with you and bless you. Okay, so then the Lord tells him why he doesn't want to go. He wants him to live in this land, which is the land he already promised to Abraham, and to live as an alien. And then what does he say? I will be with you and I will bless you. So this is the first time that the Lord is speaking directly to Isaac. And then he continues, for I will give all these lands to you and your offspring, and I will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. Okay, so let's just kind of count here. What are the things he's promising him? Land. I'm going to give all these lands to you. And then he says, I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky, and I will give your offspring all these lands. Okay, so now he's going to bless his seed or his offspring. Land, seed, what's the last thing? And he says, all the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring. Okay, so then the nations are going to be blessed. The Lord's going to bless him, bless the nations through him. So the Lord is promising land, seed, and blessing. And then he tells him why. Why is the Lord doing this to Isaac? Well, he tells us in the very next verse, because Abraham listened to me and kept my mandate, my commands, my statutes, and my instructions. So the Lord is continuing his blessing with Isaac because of the promise he made to Abraham and because of what Abraham did. What did Abraham do? He listened to God. He kept his mandate. He kept his commands. He kept his statutes and his instructions. So the Lord says, I'm going to bless you because of Abraham. And we're going to see that theme repeated. If you're making notes of themes in your Bible as we're going through this, if you've been going through, like this is another theme that we need to be aware of. And so it says Isaac settled in Gerar. Okay, so he obeyed. So next I'm going to read 7 through 11. When the men of the place asked about his wife, he said, she is my sister, for he was afraid to say my wife, thinking, the men of the place will kill me on account of Rebekah, for she is a beautiful woman. When Isaac had been there for some time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from the window and was surprised to see Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. Abimelech sent for Isaac and said, so she really is your wife? How could you say she's my sister? Isaac answered him, because I thought I might die on account of her. Then Abimelech said, what have you done to us? One of the people could easily have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt on us. So Abimelech warned all the people, whoever harms this man or his wife will certainly be put to death. Okay. So here we have the repeat. Like the parallels of this story is crazy with that of Abraham. So what does he tell? I mean, let's just look at it. Okay, so what does he tell her? Tell everyone she's my sister. So he's like, hey, I'm going to tell everybody you're my sister. And then it tells us why. He was afraid to say she was his wife because he thought, well, the men of these places will kill me on account of Rebekah, for she's a beautiful woman. That's almost verbatim what Abraham said. Sarah was beautiful. He thought they would kill him. So he'd been there for a little while. And then in the previous time with Abraham, the Lord interceded. The Lord had to intervene through a dream or through, I don't remember what the other one was, but the Lord had to intervene. And here, Abimelech just looks out the window and he sees Isaac and Rebekah not acting like brother and sister. And so he confronts him and he's like, how could you say she's my sister? And how does Isaac answer? Well, I thought I might die on account of her. Like this, the parallels are so obvious here. And then Abimelech, again, even the parallel to the other story, the pagan king is rebuking the one that God has said, hey, I'll bless. And he's like, what have you done to us? You could have brought guilt upon us. And so then what does he do? He warned the people. Abimelech says, whoever harms this man or his wife will be put to death. So here we even see, just like God did with Abraham and Sarah, God preserving the seed by protecting them. He does the same thing here. God's preserving. Even the pagans can't be outside of God's sovereign will. And so just this little story, we see some generational repetitions here, which in one of the commentaries I was reading, the application question was like, is there anything in your life, like if you have kids or if you have people that look up to you, like, are there things in your life that your children are going to see that maybe you wouldn't want them to repeat? And if you've had kids, you've had this happen. They would say something or do something and you're like, oh man, I need to watch that. Good application. Just something to think about in general. All right, so we'll continue. I'll read verses 12 through 22. Isaac sowed seed in the land, and in that year he reaped 100 times what was sown. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich and kept getting richer until he was very wealthy. He had flocks of sheep, herds of cattle, and many slaves, and the Philistines were envious of him. Philistines stopped up all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of his father Abraham, filling them with dirt. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Leave us, for you are much too powerful for us." So Isaac left there, camped in the Gerar Valley, and lived there. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the days of his father Abraham and that the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died. He gave them the same names his father had given them. Then Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found a well of spring of water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen and said, "This water is ours." So he named the well Esek because they argued with him. Then they dug another well and quarreled over that one also, and he named it Sitnah. He moved over from there and said, "For now the Lord has made space for us, and we will be fruitful in the land." I'm going to go ahead and actually continue to read through 25. From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him that night and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your offspring because of my servant Abraham." So he built an altar there, called on the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there. Isaac's servants also dug a well there. Okay, so now we have these verses again about wells and water and names and quarreling, and you're probably like, haven't we heard this before? And yes, we have. So this is another one of those things that we see. This probably was something that was common at that time. Actually, let me rephrase that. I think quarreling over water and land and wells and things, I think that that was common. But what was not common here and what we just read was, what was the purpose of them doing that? It says the Philistines were jealous of him because the Lord was, it said the Lord, he reaped 100 times what was sown. That's unheard of. 100 times, that doesn't happen. So, and then it says the Lord blessed him and the man became wealthy, or the man became rich and kept getting richer and richer until he was wealthy. Okay. So let's see how the Lord is choosing to bless him. So first he blesses him with material things, right? He's getting wealthy. Like the Lord's just, I lost my train of thought. The Lord is multiplying everything he sows 100-fold. So he becomes very wealthy. He had flocks of sheep, herds, cattle, and then we have some strife going on. Okay, so let me back up. Let's compare this with Abraham. Okay, so we read several chapters earlier that the Lord did the same thing with Abraham. He had material blessings. He had livestock, gold and silver. So he was very wealthy. What did we just read about Isaac? Everything was reaped 100-fold. So he is becoming richer and richer. So they both have material blessings from the Lord. Like they have these material things. Then we read that the Philistines were envious of what was going on here. So now we see some strife here. Okay, well, with Abraham, where did we see strife? When they went to the land, it was so small that there was strife between his herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. Okay, and so that's what we have here. So now there's strife between the Philistines and Isaac. So we're seeing the strife again. So it's like there's blessing from the Lord, right? Which a result of that is that there's strife. There's conflict of some sort. With Abraham, it was with his herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. There were so many of them because of the Lord's blessing that the land wouldn't keep them. Okay, well, right here, the Lord is blessing him so much that the Philistines are becoming envious and they're starting to stop up the well. And now we have this whole thing where they're claiming this and filling this with dirt and all these things, okay? But then the final thing that we have is their separation. And so we know how Abraham and Lot ended. They became so much, there was strife that they had to separate. Well, here in verse 16, Abimelech said to Isaac, leave us, for you're too powerful for us. So now he has to separate from Abimelech. So he's been in there living as an alien, like the Lord told him in the verses we read before. And now we have this same thing. We have material blessing, strife, separation, same parallel layout as Abraham. And then we read where he goes and he tries to open up these wells. He finds water, and then the people are like, no, that's ours. And then he goes and digs up another well, and he finds water, a spring of water there. And then he goes on, and then he finally digs one, and they did not quarrel over it. And it was named Rehoboth, which means, what I write here, I can't read my handwriting. Oh, open spaces. So he finally found a well. The Lord made space for us. We will be fruitful in this land. That's what he named it after. And then, so it says from there, he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him that night. Okay. So here the Lord is appearing to him, and he says, I am the God of your father, Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your offspring because of my servant Abraham. And so this is a phrase that I want you to mark. I want you to remember, put it in your notes, highlight it or something, because we're going to see this repeated phrase all throughout the Old Testament. I am the God, the father of Abraham. So remember, if you have the bonus resources from the Genesis thing, we're going through the timeline. And right now we are in the time period of the patriarchs. Well, we're only to Isaac right now. So we have Abraham and Isaac. Isaac has died. Abraham has died. So now we're at Isaac. Well, when God is coming to Isaac and he is like reminding him of who he is, I am the God of your father, Abraham. Okay, we're going to move on from that. And then when we get to the next generation, we're going to see the words change, and it's going to say, I am the father of Abraham and Isaac. But right now, Isaac is still alive. So how does the Lord reveal himself? I'm the God of your father, Abraham. Okay, so just keep that. If that was confusing, just mark it, keep it, remember it. We're going to be going through it. But what does he tell him after that? Do not be afraid. Why does he tell him not to be afraid? Does he say, I'm going to make your enemies your footstool? I'm going to let only good things happen to you. Nothing bad's going to come your way. Is that what he tells him? I just kind of like going back to the last chapter we read, we got a little foreshadowing of Jacob and Esau. It is not going to be easy on Isaac. He's actually got a really rough road ahead of him. So what does the Lord say? Don't be afraid. Why? For I am with you. That's why he doesn't have to be afraid, not because the Lord is going to make everything fine and dandy. It's because the Lord's with him. And I think sometimes we can maybe hear like, oh, the Lord says, don't be afraid. Or the Lord's like, oh, come to me and I'm going to make your life great. No, what makes God so good and sweet and gracious? It's because he actually is with us. If we belong to him, he's with us. So just a little side note, that's just my little 2 cents. And then he says, I will bless you and I will multiply your offspring because of my servant Abraham. So then he continues, which he's already given him this promise, but we need the repetition. So did they. I'll bless you and I'll multiply your offspring. Why? Because of his servant Abraham. Oh, because of Abraham. I'm the father of your Abraham. Because of him, I'm going to do this. So then Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord and pitched his tent and he dug a well. Okay, so he calls upon the name of the Lord, builds an altar, and is worshiping him there. Okay, so I'm going to finish out this chapter with another covenant. This is going to be repeat as well. Now Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzah his advisor and Phicol the commander of his army. Isaac said to them, why have you come to me? You hated me and sent me away from you. They replied, we have clearly seen how the Lord has been with you. We think there should be an oath between 2 parties, between us and you. Let us make a covenant with you. You will not harm us, just as we have not harmed you, but have only done what is good to you, sending you away in peace. You are now blessed by the Lord. So he prepared a banquet for them, and they ate and drank. They got up early in the morning and swore an oath to each other. Isaac sent them on their way and left him in peace. On that same day, Isaac's servants came to tell him about the well they had dug, saying, we have found water. He called it Sheba. Therefore, the name of the city is still called Beersheba today. When Esau was 40 years old, he took as his wives Judith, daughters of Beeri the Hethite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hethite. They made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. Okay. So if you've been following along and you're just kind of like listening to this, you might be like, wow, that's a really weird way to end this chapter. And we're going to talk about it. But just to kind of continue the storyline of the land and the wells and everything else, we have another covenant with Abimelech, which, if you'll remember, in chapter 21, verses 22 through 34, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we have this exact same thing. Abimelech came to Abraham and said, God is with you in everything you do. Swear to me here and now that you'll not break an agreement between us. Okay. And so here we have Abimelech and Phicol, or however you want to say that. And again, this is one of those things where people are like, oh, it's the same people. And then somebody else is like, well, if you look at the timeline, that had to just have been like their name, like their title given, not necessarily their name. However you want to look at it, this is a replay of exactly what's happening. And so Moses is letting us know, like, hey, the same promise he made to Abraham, it's happening with Isaac as well. Like even the pagans are seeing that the Lord is blessing them. And so that's what should come to our mind. And so they say, we see how clearly the Lord has been with you. Let's make an oath between us. And so basically it's like, hey, and I've said this before, and you'll probably hear me say it several more times, but, this whole idea of like atheism and agnostic, that God doesn't exist, or I don't know, like that's new. Like that's within the last century. At this time and up until like 100 years ago, everyone believed in gods. They knew that there was a higher power than them. They just had a different idea of who those gods were. And so this would have been seeing the physical blessings of how the Lord was blessing Isaac. They would have known that. And that's why they would have gone to him and said, we have seen clearly how the Lord has been with you. Let's make an oath. And so the oath was protection for them, but it was also out of fear of what their God had for them. And so every religion had their different gods. There were also different beliefs that depending on where you were located, there was a god designated for that specific place, that the god stayed in the place that you were at, or his people were at. And so remember, they're aliens, right? God told them you're going to live here as an alien. They have come into the land of Canaan. So this all kind of makes sense if you look at it historically. But they're basically like, hey, don't harm us. Make this agreement with us. We've done good to you, right? And so then he prepared a banquet, which was a sign that they had accepted the oath. And then he sent them on their way and they left in peace. So now we have another piece. So we have the pagans coming to God's chosen because they see God working and wanting to make peace with them because they can tell Yahweh, L-O-R-D in all caps, that is the one true God. They don't acknowledge him as that, but they acknowledge that something's going on. So we have kind of this replay here of the Lord blessing Isaac. He's brought peace. He's got wells. The Lord protected him when he lied about Rebekah, all of these things. And then we have 2 verses to end this chapter. And this is where you are probably like, huh? What? This is weird. So y'all are probably going to get sick and tired of this analogy, but it's the best one that I can think of. This is like in my time where you used to have to sit through commercials and you had to wait an entire week when you had a series that you watched and you couldn't just binge watch the whole thing in a 24-hour period. You had to wait. They would like do the whole scene. And then at the very end, they would have one little thing and you'd be like, oh, wait, that was out of nowhere. What? I got to wait a whole week to see what's happening. That's what this is right here. This is like the ending of like, oh, all this is great. It looks great. You're ending it. And you're like, what is that? I love shows that have good endings. God is so good to Isaac. And then we have these last 2 verses. When Esau was 40 years old, he took as his wives Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hethite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hethite. They made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. Now we're going back to Jacob and Esau. We had them last chapter. We've kind of had a break, but now the author, Moses, is bringing this back to our attention. And next chapter, you're going to get to read about what is this foreshadowing. It's pretty bad. It gets pretty bad. So remember, what did the Lord tell Isaac? Don't be afraid, for I'm going to be with you. And it's about to get in full form, just how the Bible does. But first of all, just a couple things I want to point out. Esau's 40. Okay, so several years, decades have passed. The stories aren't always like year after year after year. It's highlighting the most important events. And so Esau is 40. He takes 2 wives. Okay, this would have just in and of itself opposed what God had commanded. And it says they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. And what that translates to is they became bitterness of spirit. So these women that he had taken, who were not of who the Lord would have had them take wives for, they made life bitter. And so we're ending this chapter with there's bitterness for Isaac and Rebekah. And one, I mentioned this earlier, but like, I love that the Bible doesn't just show the highlight reels, because that would actually be pretty depressing. But I also want to like acknowledge that the Lord is blessing Isaac just like he's promised in all the ways possible. He's promised that he's going to be with him. He's going to continue his promise with land and with his offspring that he was going to bless them with. But like, this is what's going on. Like, life is not all sunshine and rainbows, even for those whom God is like, hey, you're going to be the one I bless the whole world through. This is still going on. They have a son, well, and both of them are going to be at it, but that are not honoring the Lord and are not bringing joy. They're bringing grief and hard things. And so we get this here, and this is how it ends. And so you're going to be reading next chapter before Saturday, when we break down chapter 27, which is one of the most popular Sunday school stories, but we want to sit in the reality of what's going on. So if you have the guide, make sure you go through those questions just to kind of sit down. We want to fight against familiarity, and you're going to hear me say that a lot. But if we've been around the Bible a lot, but we haven't really been in it, when we actually get in it, we're like, oh, yeah, I know that. And then we brush through it. And I don't want us to do that. I want us to sit in God's word and pray before you even read it, that he would reveal it to you, illuminate some things that he would have for you. So I would love to know what you're learning. Leave them in the comments. I do read the comments. I'm not always super up to date, but I do love to go read them. Let me know what you're learning, what stood out to you. Invite your friends. Ladies, get your friends together and go through Genesis together and listen to the teaching and discuss and see what the Lord is showing you. So until next time, stay rooted.